Some people who hang out in the blogosphere see themselves as watchdogs, freelance quality control officers, keeping an eye on what comes down the mainstream media's production line. Case in point, Reuters and the famous Photoshop incident in Lebanon. Time to play Spot the Difference between this original news photo of smoke looming over Beirut and this second photoshopped version of the same shot. A blogger was the first to notice that the photo had been tampered with. Reuters was red-faced, the photographer no longer works there, and the question became, how, in this age of instant digital manipulation, can we believe the images in our newspapers and on our television screens? There was something about the image that just didn't look right. The recurring pattern in the cloud. Smoke doesn't behave that way.
I think the mistake that he made was he looked at this picture and he decided to embellish it. Now, the quickest way to embellish it, first of all, is to start off probably down here, clones that, and that's how you see these repetitive shapes. In fact, I'm doing rather a better job than he did. You know, this is Photoshop 101.
Philip Jones Griffiths has been a news photographer for almost 50 years.
One of the extraordinary things about this particular case is just how badly the photoshopping was done, so that one glance at that smoke and you saw these repetitive shapes, which is the first giveaway that it's been photoshopped.
In 2003, a Los Angeles Times shooter photoshopped two images into one, planting a British soldier into a crowd of Iraqi civilians. The photographer was found out and fired. In 2004, faked photos of British soldiers abusing Iraqi prisoners made it into a UK tabloid. The fraud was exposed, the paper apologized, and fired its chief editor. But in both those cases, the doctoring was radical. This time, it was cosmetic. So what was the point?
There is still a lot of pressure for photographers to come up with a picture. The thing is about this particular image is that the original, in many people's estimation, is actually better than the one that he made out of it, and that there was absolutely no need to do that. So I think what's then questionable is the motivation of where it's coming from. It's not just a photographic response. It seems to be more of a, maybe a political response, or maybe just getting too involved in the story, or feeling one side and trying to make it come through in your photography.
The photographer was a Beirut-based freelancer named Adnan Haj, a local hire. He also added two extra flares to this image of an Israeli warplane. News companies use more local hires now than they used to, partly because they're cheaper, but they might not be as objective as outsiders. When the fraud was exposed by bloggers, Reuters flashed this message to its clients to kill Haj's pictures. And in an indication of how sensitive the Lebanon story is, it announced its filing drills have been tightened and only senior staff will now edit pictures from the Middle East. Reuters fired the photographer, but not the photo editor who failed to spot the phony images, maybe because it didn't really blame him.
Things have changed in the last 15, 20 years dramatically, not just with the digital process, but with the ability now for people to transmit pictures from all over the world very quickly. The number of pictures on a daily report is phenomenal from AP or Reuters or one of the large wire services, is easily into the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pictures.
The bloggers who uncovered the fake did not stop there. They then questioned images from the attack in Qana, where so many children were killed by the Israelis. The suggestion was these images had somehow been staged. Altering images has a long, if not necessarily proud, tradition. This famous picture of communist leaders in Red Square once included Trotsky before he was removed. But back then, you had to be an expert in the darkroom to manipulate an image. Now, anyone with a computer can do it, and just about every news photographer like Adnan Haj works with one.
That begs the question, hey, well, what would have happened had he been much better at doing Photoshop? Then, of course, he probably would never have been found out.
Well, the other question that goes begging is how many of the images that we've seen from this war, from Lebanon, have been manipulated in this way, but just more professionally?
Every picture is treated with some skepticism, and that's the only way to go. There's no reason, unfortunately, now to believe any picture.
We're back after this with the story on the biggest battle the internet has ever seen, the battle for access in China.